Welcome to Planetary Gig Talk, Tales of Music and Magic. I'm your host, Jefferson Glassy, the Chief Spiritual Dude of the Planetary Gig Society, whose mission is making connections through music with the intention of bringing peace, creating harmony, yada, 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 to make a better world. Music is so powerful. Yeah, we go with the mission of the moment, but that's the overall mission. And I'm really, really excited to be here today with a great friend, wonderful human being, so insightful, Patty Raine. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's very special because Patty and I had a podcast interview. She came to the house like the first 50 people who did these podcasts right here and sat at the table. She was number 23. February 2018, Patty and I spoke and had a great conversation, and I would really commend that to anybody because we talked about a lot of different things, and in addition to music and whatever, but synesthesia, this kind of curious, amazing sensory gift that some people have, and we all have in some ways, was the main topic of the conversation. And recently we've been just chatting, and Patty said she'd like to kind of update the conversation with things that she's learned or been kind of feeling about this thing called synesthesia. And so, Patty, it's just such a great honor. We've had so many good programs, the ones we did with Roy Wooten about music and Ho'oponopono, and a lot of, right, rabbit holes that we've gone down, and here we are going deep. So
once again,
yeah, how are you doing? I don't know if you want to give a little bit of a sort of an intro. It's 7 years later after the last conversation. We're on Zoom, not just audio. So
yeah, I can't believe it's 7 years later. Hey,
yeah.
A lot has happened. I'm doing a lot of music, art. In my original interview, I just talked about specifically my own experience and the trajectory of what this phenomenon was, and how I didn't take the time to understand what it was until I moved to Boulder in 1995. And Boulder, the land of woo-woo, is perfect, perfect for investigating phenomena. So I'm just going to start off by just talking about different types of synesthesia and the kind that I have, which is very profound. It's very profound. It's with me all the time. I encounter it every time I encounter another human being, music and human beings, And with me, it's the shape of someone's face, how they move, and the sound of the voice. So I can listen. And I began to do readings in late 90s and early 2000s. And I've done hundreds of those. And sometimes I will do them face to face, which is fine. Oftentimes it'll just be on the phone. I'll just listen to the voice. And epic images appear, starting with geometric shapes that evolve into mundane shapes. But I'm going to talk about the different types of synesthesia, so everyone's surprised. I think there are about 88 different types. Some say 20, some say 88, whatever. But you made a comment about the gods.
Yeah, it's one of those things in life we kind of think, oh, there's, 6 kinds of trees, or, we just have a limited perspective. And my friend Raj from Rishikesh said one time, some people say there are 33 gods in Hinduism. Some people say there are 33 million. So it really kind of depends the way you look at it and how deep you want to go. There's another book that I read. It's a really profound book. I did a video book report. It's on YouTube, called The Silent Pulse. And he talks about senses, and we all think there's 5 senses. And he said, no, there's like 35.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there could be many, many more that we have, because so much goes on kind of under the radar, if you will. And we just, we learn things without even knowing where it comes from. So Yeah, I mean, I'm anxious to hear about the kind of the main types of synesthesia and how this all plays out, because it is really important for music, because kind of music is just is synesthesia is another way to perceive music in a way, I guess. I don't know.
It is very much so, and we'll find out a little bit later. I'm going to talk about some composers who had synesthesia, composers, musicians. Well, let's see. First of all, there's grapheme color synesthesia. It's a common form where all letters and numbers are associated with colors. So it's when someone looks at 1, 2, 3, 4, they'll see certain colors specifically related to those and to those numbers or to those letters. And it's different with every person who has synesthesia. So in my case, my ones and my zeros are always black and always white. My twos are always yellow. My threes are always a certain color of green. My fours are always red. My fives are always another kind of golden yellow. My
Wow.
sixes are always burnt orange, brown. So it's consistent. So it's measured. That's called grapheme color. And
Wow.
then there's sound to color synesthesia, which I have. I hear sound. It immediately translates into a color. If I hear someone's voice, again, it's the shape of their face also has an effect. It'll translate to an immediate impression of a color. And in my case, it goes from a first color, second color, third color, boom, 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 like that. And then if I'm doing a reading, it'll, start to evolve into shape, form, et cetera, et cetera.
Like the primary colors, or not primary, but just different colors that match, or like relative minors or something. I mean, they're related in that kind of a way, I guess.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, there's the magenta, cyan, and yellow. Magenta, cyan, yellow, black. So, magenta, cyan, yellow, black. Yeah. And if they're put together, if you project those colors, magenta, cyan, and yellow, you put them together, they make white. So it's just, it's the visible color spectrum. Let's see, there's another form of synesthesia, number forms synesthesia, a mental map that consists of numbers. When a person with number form synesthesia thinks about numbers, a number map is involuntarily visualized. So it's classic. It is sometimes suggested that the number forms are a product of cross-activation between regions in the parietal lobe, part of the brain that is involved in numerical and spatial cognition. So they've measured this, doing MRIs and scans. There's a personification form of synesthesia. This type is known as ordinal linguistic personification, OLP. A person who experiences this will associate ordered sequences and various personalities. Ordered sequences may include numbers, letters, months, and so on. He may look at the letter A and think in his mind, A is a rude letter. So there's, emotional associations. Personally, I think it's rather amusingly self-deprecating. This guy is writing. Let's see. And then there's lexical gustatory synesthesia, more rare. Synesthetes who experience this kind of synesthesia evoke different kinds of tastes when they hear certain words or phonemes or sounds. According to research, associations between the words and what a synesthete is able to taste are constrained by tastes that he or she has experienced in life. So this goes on to associative synesthesia, which I also have. I have various associations with things. So if there's an emotion coming from a person, my particular system will translate it emotionally into a metaphor. And often the metaphor does indeed relate to the person.
It's hard to imagine. I don't think that happens to me. I mean, you see people, you get impressions, you can smell things, there's all kinds of things going on. You forget their name, but I don't think images come to me and whatever. And I don't know about other people, but
But you feel,
Yeah.
you sense. In
Yes.
that sense, you walk into a room and you sense what's going on. You sense things with another person
Right. Yeah.
based on their gestures, based on their voice, based on their um, affectations, tone of voice, that kind of
Yeah.
thing. We
You
all
make a
have
little
that.
bit of an evaluation.
Right.
I guess we all do, and maybe there's kind of a normal range, which was in those five senses, but there's it's just it's heartening to know that there are really so many different perspectives on life, isn't it?
Yes, it is, and it's interesting because they think that about 4% of the world population has synesthesia, only 4%, and they are considered, oddities because they're. I mean, I'll talk about these composers, but they were considered oddities, and they were original because they were perceiving things and cross-pollinating their senses, seeing sound, hearing shapes, that kind of thing over and over again. So,
And just for example, I assume so many. I think women are more intuitive, and so much of their intuition was attacked. It's
yes,
terrified people, which led to all kinds of badness. You know,
yeah, women's intuition. They were, and women who were the healers, who were the herbalists, the midwives. I've talked with someone recently about this. Were condemned as witches because they seemed to have magical powers of healing that were outside the prescribed world. And yeah, ugh, yeah,
rather than be in awe, everybody was in fear, or men or some people were in fear, or maybe it threatened religions or kingdoms and what have you. So it's
yes. Well, this goes to sort of a classic human condition of requiring an other to project nefarious feelings, hatred, whatever
yeah,
onto. And so women, more often than not, got that exalted position of being relegated. So all these types of synesthesia. I'm going to focus too on this one. Had sent you this article, and I'm including this in the redo of my film and talk about synesthesia. This article came out, I think, the Baltimore Sun Journal in the 1990s. It's called "Melodies of the Mushrooms." I'm going to show it here.
melodies of the.
It's backwards. I
No,
think it's
it looks right to me. Yeah,
it's. Does it look right to you? It looks
yeah,
backwards
I
to
can
you.
read it. Yep.
Okay. Um, Melodies of the Mushrooms. And when I reread this article, I remember, oh, this is great. So he's having an experience when he sees a mushroom. He has an experience of all these melodies occurring in his head. But it turns out, and I read the article more closely, he was going out on a photographic exhibition with this guy who was photographing mushrooms. And prior to this, he had not had this experience. So it was when he looked at the photograph of a mushroom, when he looked at the photograph of the mushroom, that's when he had the audio melody.
He heard the mushrooms'
Well,
music.
no, here's what I think. It may be um, vibrations that the mushroom is actually emanating. It may be,
Hmm?
but since doesn't have the luxury of asking the mushroom what its melody is and corroborating, the experience, what I think was happening is that when he encountered the shape of the mushroom,
Hmm.
his eyes encountered the shape of the mushroom. His synesthesia, his audio synesthesia, conjured certain melodies.
Hmm.
That was his individual relationship to those mushrooms. And we could talk about observation, like something changes upon observation.
Right.
So are you the pure observer? Are you purely observing an objective reality in that, say, the mushrooms are indeed giving off all these musical signals? Or are you having a purely subjective experience based on the shape of the mushroom? And I think it's a little bit of both.
Yeah, well, I mean, they could also be emanating sound or frequencies that, generally wouldn't be heard, but
Yes.
because there are people who attach wires and electrodes to mushrooms and play all this music. I don't quite get it.
Yeah,
Understand?
well, they're picking up frequencies, so they translate the frequency. But here's the thing and this is what I've learned in the 7 years since we did that, is that what I was trying to do each time I did a reading or each time I had an experience is try to understand whether I was in purely observational mode, really standing back and letting whatever it was show me what it is, or was I anticipating, or was I making assumptions or projections? So I really tried to practice being as still as I possibly could. And in this case, this guy, he was just spontaneously hearing these things in his head. And I think, again, it was both, since, again, he didn't have the luxury of asking the mushrooms whether this is correct. He didn't have the luxury of, attaching electrodes to the mushrooms to see if this is correct. He was having an individual experience of a relationship with those shapes. I have a relationship with shapes. I see certain shapes and certain things happen visually and audially, in a hearing sense and in a feeling sense. So I think that's fascinating.
It's totally fascinating. And I have so many things going around in my head. I'm not sure exactly what to say, but well, go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say his compositions were performed by full orchestras to great general delight and skepticism.
Yeah, because he said, I learned this melody or this composition from the mushrooms.
Yes, but what I'm saying is, basing this on what was written about his initial experience, and his initial experience was seeing the shape of the mushroom in the photo. He wasn't sitting down next to the mushroom. It was represented by a photo. So it was predominantly the shape that was eliciting the sound. And in my case, the shape elicits color and form and other forms.
Wow. And it's
then hearing and then feeling.
It's a whole take on the quantum physics, the observer who in these studies, if you're looking at a wave and a particle, a wave is going by and you look at it, turns into a particle.
Yes.
So the observer kind of creates, in a sense, the reality of the observed. But there's not just one observer. Everybody's observing, and all the observers are getting observed. So it's kind of a big, just amalgamation of observation and frequency, etc. And you just have a more unique way of getting that.
Yes, and it's interesting. There's always a joke to say, I don't begin to understand fully quantum physics. I'm just still reading and trying to understand how this fits into my own experience.
Right.
But I was saying this joke is that when you observe a wave and it turns into a particle, okay, is it because you're observing it? I think yes. Or is it because the wave and the particle is showing off?
Yeah, they're saying,
hey, look what I can do.
Who are you looking at? Who are you looking at?
Who are you looking at? So it's fascinating. But that evolves into okay, everything is correlating all the time. We're all relating to every other thing, every other object, every event, every person, every creature, every plant, all the time.
Yeah.
And things are happening and things are being learned. Things are being learned on an unseen, unheard, unfelt level. And I would say that people who have synesthesia can see and hear and feel what's being learned in these relationships. And so this guy, and my takeaway with this guy, the Melody the Mushroom guy, is he was being, so I just wrote this down. I said his synesthetic, spontaneous musical perception was his individual particular relationship with the other, the specific mushroom, and not necessarily the actual emitting melodic structure of the mushroom, though it might have been. So, yeah, it's, yeah.
And
so subjectivity, objectivity, it's going on all the time.
That does seem, in a way, and you'll probably get to some aspect of this, it seems like it's just all music.
Yes, and it is sound. I mean, I mentioned this last time, that my intro in my film is, in the original Bible, the Old Testament of the Bible, which a friend of mine referred to as a real study in human nature. And it is. By those who are writing these stories and those who are receiving, here's what can happen, folks. But it said, in the beginning, there was the Word. I said, what was this word? Was it a sound? And many people feel it was a sound. And we know by looking at all the things that are all over YouTube right now with cymatics, that is sound creating form, sand on metal plates, creating patterns, cornstarch being hooked up to a frequency generator, and shapes being formed that look like caterpillars and spiders. Right. And, we know that sound creates form. So I'm starting that in the beginning, there was the Word. There was a sound. And then all this form happened. And so, yes, you go back to music. It's a particular kind of sound. It has mathematics associated with it. It's measured. There are measures. There are notes. There are time signatures. It's very carefully wrought. For me, it's a more palatable version of mathematics.
Yeah, right.
I don't like equations. I don't like, it's too cold.
Yeah.
For me, as I said, it feels too cold. But music has all this warmth and potential to it.
Yeah. And as we've talked, you've kind of indicated to me that when I'm looking out this window and the trees and the winds blowing in the leaves and whatever, and I can hear that a little bit in my mind's ear. But life is so amazing and so much more colorful and musical and vibrational or whatever than you would think. And you just have a particularly adept, ability to perceive that, I guess.
It's just, it's a quirk of nature. The quintessential neurological condition where one origin of one sense triggers another. Like seeing sound, hearing shapes, tasting sound, which is more rare. But when you're speaking of music, there are all these musicians, composers that had synesthesia. And in the day, it wasn't spoken about. Again, synesthesia didn't experience a resurgence in discussion until the 90s. I think Dr. Richard Siddewick, who lives in Bethesda, wrote his book on synesthesia. There are now hundreds of books on the phenomenon. But as far as music is concerned, which is your bailiwick, there are various composers. Well, one of my favorite composers is Jean Sibelius, the Finnish composer, violinist. And he said that there was a mysterious connection between sound and color, and also between perceptions of eye and ear. So what he saw went directly to his hearing. And what he heard went directly to color. And what I hear goes directly to color. That everything he saw produced a corresponding impression on his ear. And every sound was transferred and fixed as a color on his eyes.
Wow.
And his critics considered him original or crazy.
Yeah, here we are.
So classic. And then also learned that Franz Liszt was also a synesthete, Hungarian composer, pianist, conductor. He would say to his orchestra, he'd say, "Gentlemen, a little bluer, if you please." He said the tone requires it.
Wow.
Yeah. Or he would say, "That is deep violet, please depend on it, not so rose." And so his whole orchestra finally got that he really actually saw the musical notes as color.
Wow.
They thought it was a joke initially.
Mm-hmm.
And so they finally go, "Oh, yeah, okay, fine."
Wow.
And then now we move forward. Let's see. I'm going to go back to, we move forward a little bit. Duke Ellington also had synesthetic. A lot of musicians and a lot of artists, a lot of writers, a lot of people, creative people have these synesthetic qualities.
Huh.
Duke Ellington, he said he would hear a note played by one of the fellows in the band, and it's one color. Then I hear the same note played by someone else, and it's a different color.
Holy smokes.
And so he said one note, and he named the player, he said, would come up as indigo blue burlap. And another note would be like a bright, yellow, orange tone, fiery tone or whatever. So he'd have these immediate impressions, and you listen. And now when you know this about Duke Ellington and you listen to his music, you go, "Oh, God."
Colorful.
Yeah, colorful. One of the brilliance of his compositions, his cadence, his sense of music was so off the charts.
Mm-hmm.
And you move forward a little bit more to Pharrell Williams.
Happy.
Yeah, would be happy. And he said he could always see it. He could always visualize what he was hearing. And it was always weird colors. So
Wow.
on and on and on and on.
Happy must be a very, very colorful song.
Yeah, it is. And I think for him, it fetched up as oranges and yellows and, warmer colors. Just the warmer colors, warmer tones. So, yeah. Yeah. Any questions?
Well, so, you have learned a lot in this time. In your whole life you had. You said you used to, as a child, you would have different colored friends and didn't think about it so much. And it's been a long process to kind of understand it more. And in the last, what you've been now knowing more and accepting more, how do you even describe the world as you see it now, and with a musical slant or not, but it just seems you've really kind of become more at ease and accepting of what you have, and now you're really reviewing, kind of analyzing, thinking about it and how you can share best to benefit other people in a way.
Yes. I feel, I think I mentioned to you in the past, I feel more confident about presenting my subjective experience, which has an objective component. That is, I see things around people that do indeed relate to them. Why? Because I have the luxury of asking questions of a human being. I'm not encountering a mushroom and having an experience. I can't really corroborate, but I can corroborate with another human being. So I just said that my own synesthetic experience had an objective component to it. And I'd ask questions about the object that formed themselves based on what the person was talking about. It had an emotional component. So the object that appeared, or the geometric shape that appeared, related to the emotion that the person was feeling at the time they were talking about this particular, or telling a story.
Yeah, and when you do a reading, what you're talking about is observing, being with someone, looking at them, asking them questions, and then drawing up what you're kind of seeing, which
Yes.
is not just sort of the person or even the color, but these metaphors and different things that kind of affect who they are and
Yes.
what they're dealing with. I don't know if I
Yes.
said that very well or not, but
You did just fine. No, basically, what I realized over time, and just so I wouldn't get ahead of myself and I wouldn't make blanket statements, and these were not readings of prognostication. They didn't, predict the future, because I felt that the person themselves was a predictor of their own future based on their behavior and how they spoke about themselves or other people, how they moved through life, whether they were slightly cautious and really could stand back and observe, then they would be able to see a better way forward, that kind of thing. And what I see, the various objects did indeed relate to the person. They would maybe have this object in their physical house, but I learned to take apart the object and take it back to its origins. I looked at it elementally. Okay, what's it made of? What is its shape? Where does it locate itself as I'm visualizing on the body of the person? And so I was able to create a kind of template to follow, to say that, oh, this is beneficial or this is not so beneficial. And it related to the physical body, it related to the emotional body, the mental body. I studied as much as I could on all of this stuff.
Yeah. And before we forget, could you mention horses?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I did for a time, and I mentioned in the last talk. So here we're taking it from theory, which I'm trying to apply it by doing readings. I did what I called case studies. I set up my little shop on the Pearl Street Mall in Boulder, got my permit, and I set up like readings. And I started doing readings for people. And then I did, like I said, case studies where I really would flesh out and make the readings or make the portraits more detailed so I could understand what I was seeing. And then I met someone who did what is known as equine experiential learning, which is you take, here's an example of one of the readings. What do you see around folks?
That's some person.
Yes.
Kind of the colors and their biofield or their field, whatever, the
yes.
things, issues, memories, problems, that kind of
this has to do with the conversation that she was having and how she felt and what came up. But as a result of doing these readings on Pearl Street Mall and learning, I met someone who was, again, doing equine experiential learning, in which she had a group of 4 horses that she was working with. And she would have workshops whereby you would stand there, you do a meditation before you encounter the horse in the round pen. And you calm yourself down, because if you're not calmed down and with yourself calm, the horse won't have anything to do with you. And so then you turn around and you encounter the horse. And the horse, the 1,500-pound guru, would invariably act out the emotional issue that the person was trying to resolve.
Wow.
And we watched it happen time and time and time. It was phenomenal. And I would do readings of the workshop participants, very brief readings, just their colors and some very general things beforehand. And I already had done readings of all the horses, and here's one example of the horses. So you get the predominant coloration of the horse. And invariably, my cohort, Bonnie and I, would notice that the yellow people would always choose the yellow horse. And the lavender people would always choose the lavender horse. And the orange people who had boundary issues would always choose the orange horse who had boundary issues, didn't like anybody to ride it. And then the well-versed, the people who were well-versed or more integrated, that is the yoga instructors, the healers, would always choose the thoroughbred. The thoroughbred who had been trained in dressage, jumping, all kinds of things, and thought it was, was very well versed. They would always choose the thoroughbred.
Interesting. But
Yeah.
yeah, they really do have a sense. And we have a niece that does therapeutic riding, and the horses just kind of know somehow.
Yes, they know. They have senses, but they're wonderful teachers for us because they say, you have this as well. You have this as well. I was going to say about the sensation of horses. I started thinking of them as either so sensitive. I mean, they could sense things like 30 miles away. It just the change in the atmosphere.
Wow.
And make a move accordingly. In one instance, I think I might have mentioned this, this woman who was dealing with issues regarding her mother, her abandoning mother. Long story short, she's not facing the horse yet. She's doing the meditation. Her back is to the horse. And what I did was draw the energy that was flying around in the round pen. And then we talk about it afterwards. I'd show both what happened, and then I'd show a visual picture of what I felt was happening. Well, as she had her back to the horse, she was projecting energy. And I had this big rainbow of orange, which is what you're wearing today, orangish. Orange, which is the sacral chakra, and it's all about relationship, relating to anything. And so she's projecting and projecting onto this horse. Meanwhile, I wish I had a video of this because everybody witnessed it and went, "Ah." This horse, which was a painted horse, it was the orange horse, started weaving like this and blinking its eyes. And all of a sudden, boom, it lowered onto his haunches, just down on the ground. And we're all going, and meanwhile, she's just standing there with her back to the horse. And the horse is just, and finally, it rolls over on its side in the middle of the day. Horses don't do this. But it had received all this energy from her.
Wow.
And I was showing people, I said, she's sending too much energy to the horse. She's over relating. She's doing all the relating. She's not letting the horse do a damn thing.
Wow.
So the horse was on its side. And then she turns around. And there's the horse, unavailable. Just like her mother.
She overloaded the horse.
Yeah. So she immediately starts to, cry and just wail. And instinctively runs around the perimeter of the round pen, crying the whole time. And the horse is lying dead, unavailable mother, not just gone.
Wow.
And then she finally goes over and nestles up to the horse, and the horse wakes up, gets up, and the session is completed. This kind of thing happened all the time. The horse would walk away from the person because of how they felt about themselves. Which had no, their heart, bottom line, we used heart math as well. We hooked up to try to get the heart into resonance. But if your heart is not good, and this is classic Native American, if your heart is not good, a horse will sense it right away.
Ah, yeah. So they're kind of incredible beings.
Very.
Well, I just find all this so fascinating. And it does. I'll just go back. I think I said this, but what you've said about people is, everybody is just a beautiful note or a beautiful chord, and there's so much beauty and amazingness in life that we don't necessarily perceive because we're used to looking at that tree out there, you know? So is that kind of how you would say it, or would?
Yeah, I agree. And when I do readings or when I give talks, I just talk about how relationship itself, that is, you see kids and how they relate to one another when they're very young. I mean, they're territorial often. But kids who really try to relate and really try to make friends, they try to make friends, they put their arm, there's friends, or, you have friends. If your heart is good, and if you're in a household where there's not interruptions like fighting, neglect, all the things that children are prey to.
Mm.
But if there's reasonable response, call and response, and reasonable attention, children will naturally relate, and not has nothing to do with the color of someone's skin, has nothing to do with anything, whether they have wealth or not. It's just the person.
Yeah.
So I talk about this. That is, you have the ability to go back and reclaim something that was lost, something in your ability to relate and understand the other in ways that somehow have been blocked in your own senses. So.
Fascinating. Well, I guess if anyone watching has questions or wants to learn more, or maybe some synesthetes watching, I mean, I guess there are places they can go, and there's more study, as you said, about it. And
Yes. Yeah, there's a lot. There's tons of material out now on YouTube. And in the days when I was investigating this, YouTube, it wasn't up yet. And I was trying to look for all this stuff and check, Eureka, because I was seeing this and that. I mean, this is basically what I'm seeing around people all the time. So this, I mean, this kind of, that is the degree to which you think better about yourself changes the shapes and forms in your field. The degree to which you think worse about yourself changes the shapes and forms around. Immediately. It's nanosecond by nanosecond by nanosecond. So you're going through state changes hundreds and hundreds of times per day. And so I always say, in my literature, just say, the idea is to sense your own thoughts, your own speech, and your own actions. Observe. We go back to observation. Stand back. Take a pause. Notice how you're speaking. And as you say, there's more wonder out there.
Yeah.
It's much more delightful than you think.
I like to think of life as that way. Let's see. Oh, yeah. I think I covered the points. I had a couple little thoughts here too, but I think we talked about those. So thanks very much for sharing. It's great to do an update. We don't have to wait 7 more years maybe for the next one, but I just find the sort of the study and wanting to know more about music and how music and sound and vibration affects our lives. And now I'm learning more about how that happens through the theories of the principles of Hermeticism. It's just fascinating, and the conversations that we can have just are good for us because there's so much, amazingness out there.
There is. It's quite a stunning world, despite all the craziness that's going on.
Yeah.
And all the oppositional craziness that's going on. somebody somewhere on the planet is having a good time. I mean, somebody's sitting in a cafe on the Mediterranean and reflecting on how good life is, while, over in Palestine or over in Africa or wherever, someone's having a really terrible time. I was going to just comment too, the Essenes, the religious sect, had what's known as a code of compassion. That is, if you see something untoward going on in the rest of the world, you bless it. You stand back and bless it and understand that that is going on between those parties for whatever reason, not, and to stand back and to not overly concern your heart. You can feel, certainly, and do something about it, maybe practically, but not overly concern your heart, because then you can't enjoy your life.
Yeah.
As it is, where it is.
Well, a lot of people are probably feeling that way now here in the US of A.
Yes.
Coming back to these inquiries and these studies and relationship guides and just learning is really, that's the thing to do, I think. So thank you, Patricia Raine, so much.
Thank you, Jeff Glassy,
for doing all this, and we will see you around soon.
Okay.
Thanks so much.
Thanks. Appreciate it.